again, thank you for this opportunity. What Clayton presented is really, you can use that information whether you have healthy pigs or sick pigs. And so I would really spend a lot of time remembering what he just said as I start mine. So really, the biggest thing that I think we need to remember when we talk about tools in our toolbox is it's really easy to say, okay, I have PRRS, what vaccine am I going to give? What antibiotic am I going to pull out? What am I going to do with these pigs from that perspective? But really, at the end of the day, your veterinarian, your production staff, and your team members who are taking care of those sick pigs, those are actually the tools that you have to work with. So we're going to talk about different things, medications, nutrition, things like that. But at the end of the day, we really, really, really need to remember to focus on our people and making sure that what Clayton said, that they remember all the processes that they're supposed to be doing. Because very often, and we see it in our system all the time, is the pigs get really, really sick, they die a lot and often, and then the pigs get healthier, and our people go, and the pig mortality gets better, and then we go, oh, our people are doing such a good job. They're really executing all these processes really well. And it's usually not the case. So normally, healthy pigs will live in spite of what we do to them. So also, besides that, understanding really the sow farm status, so your sows versus pigs. And what I'm talking about there is really understanding what is their PRRS status and also what is their status of their other diseases that they have on farms. So you're going to manage those pigs differently if you have positive sows who are birthing viremic piglets versus that you might have positive sows that are MLV or LVI, whatever your strategy might be, with negative piglets. So that's been a really important thing in our system because it also helps us set the expectations for whether it's your director of sows, your team members, or your sow service going and seeing those farms. So it's really important to be able to set expectations on what an XYZ type pig will do in performance. So then we really start after we set those expectations. We spend a lot of time working on the management piece of those pigs. And so like we talked about, the people is a really, really big, important aspect. It's really, really easy to lose morale during these really tough PRRS breaks that we see. So when 85% of your nursery lot doesn't even leave, that's really hard for people to stomach and want to come back to work. And they also tend to go, well, why bother treating that pig? It's going to die anyway. It doesn't matter what I give it, it's going to die. So really focusing on the morale and keeping the processes in place. They should do the same thing every day when they come to work. So then, like what Clayton mentioned, environment is really, really important. So not only is it important that that environment is clean when the pigs arrive, but they're also managing that environment appropriately. It's really easy, especially in the summer, if we're placing pigs where, hey, you know what, I need more ventilation, so I'm going to drop the curtain, and then we've chilled the pigs. So chilling pigs and not managing that environment is really a hard sell to get a PRRS pig to do well on. And we find people do that all the time. They don't have the room set up. They don't have feed available to the pigs. They'll have out-of-feed events, and they'll go, oh, well, it was just a few hours, and the feed truck was coming the next morning, so it seemed okay. That's not okay for those pigs. That environment is really, really important, and a well-managed environment will go a long, long way with a sick pig. So nutrition is something else that we've really spent a lot of time focusing on in our system. And so what I mean by that is really we've spent a good bit of time trying to understand what type of pig is leaving our sow unit. So really get a good grasp on the wean weight of those pigs, on the age of those pigs, and really starting to set limits within the system of what we will or won't accept. And particularly not so much when our pigs are healthy, but when our pigs are sick. So we set limits on, obviously, bottom-end weight limits and bottom-end age limits, and that's really so that we can focus on feeding the appropriate diet to that pig right off the bat. So if your normal pig is 16 pounds and that's what your nursery one is averaging for, but now you're sending a sick PRRSy pig that's 10, 11 pounds, really your first diet isn't going to be appropriate for that pig. And so being able to acknowledge that, but then also being able to be swift enough and nimble enough in the system to change that. So sometimes that's bringing in bagged feed. Sometimes we've gone through and totally updated our nutrition program currently just for the amount of PRRS that we're dealing with. So just keeping a good pulse on that. It's somewhat like the environmental management piece of the pig. If we can keep a good pulse on what their nutrition is doing, we really have seen good improvement in the performance of our pigs overall. And so then finally, medications is the last piece. Certainly understanding what medications to use, when to use them, and timing of use is important. For our system overall, we spend a lot of time focusing on the sow unit, sending out a really well-medicated piglet to those nursery growers so that they can spend the first few days really more or less focused on that environment, the nutrition, and getting those pigs started on feed and water. And then typically after 10 days, we'll come in with an appropriate medication program depending on what they see downstream, whether we're dealing with strep suis, ASUS, GPS, whatever that case might be. Also here in medications, I know a lot of people have, well, I like to run this because it does X, Y, and Z. Sometimes it is good to just let your producers run that aspirin if it makes them feel like they're doing something, because it does mean that they're more attentive to those pigs and they're more likely in there getting them up, doing the mat feeding and gruel feeding that we'd really like them to be doing instead. And then finally, understanding if you have negative pigs going into a positive environment like Dr. Johnson spoke about, really understanding when do I need to be vaccinating these pigs and when are they most likely coming into contact with that virus, so that if you have that opportunity to be able to get them vaccinated before they are exposed an appropriate amount of time to really aid them, getting that set up and planned and executed well is really important. The biggest issue we've seen with most of our tools in our system is really the execution piece of it. You can come up with a really good plan, and you can have that plan all laid out, and you can write it really nicely, and you can send it to everyone, and they can read it. But we often find that the ability for them to execute it is where we really, really struggle. And if you are not out there watching how people are executing and you're just hoping that you sent them that SOP and that they read it and that they're doing it the way you think that they should be doing it, there's probably a lot that you could go learn by just getting out in your barns and looking at what people are doing day to day. And it seems really, really simple, but it's definitely something that we lose along the way, especially as we get bigger or have more responsibilities. And most of us probably have one or two jobs that we're doing with one title. So probably nothing super awe-inspiring, but my big message would be is really focus on your people and make sure that the processes that you have in place, they're probably the right processes. Make sure that they're getting done the right way and at the right time.